Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create a very basic movement script in Unity. So let's dive in. Alright, let's set up our scene. As you can see, I have a simple ground object and a static camera in place. Nothing fancy, just the basics to get us started. Now, let's add our player game object. This is where we'll attach our movement script. I'll show you step by step how to do this so you can follow along easily. Next, we'll add a character controller to our player object. This is essential for handling the player movement in collision. To do this, select your player object, go to the inspector, and click Add Component. Search for Character Controller and add it to the player. Make sure to delete the capsule collider because the character controller covers that. Now, let's create our movement script. But before we dive into the script, let's take a quick look at how the input axes are set up in Unity. Go to Edit, Project Settings, Input Manager. Here you'll see the horizontal and vertical axes. By default, these are mapped to the arrow keys and WASD keys, but you can customize them to fit your needs. Also, you can find the jump already mapped, and we will need that later. Now, let's go back to our script. First, we'll define some variables. Public float speed equals 5f. Serialize field private character controller, and we'll call it controller. Here we've created a public float variable for speed, which we'll use to control how fast our player moves. We've also added a private character controller variable and marked it with serialize field so we can assign it in the inspector. Now let's add the update method, which Unity calls once per frame. First we have float horizontal input equals input dot get axis horizontal. Then we'll do float vertical input, and the same thing equals input dot get axis vertical. Next we have vector3 move direction equals new vector3, and we'll give it horizontal input 0 and vertical input. Then we have move direction equals transform dot transform direction move direction. This will be used to transform the movement direction to match it to the player's orientation, and we'll scale it by our speed variable. So we'll do move direction multiplied by the speed. Finally, we'll use the character controller to move the player. So we'll do controller dot move direction multiplied by time dot delta time. This line tells the character controller to move the player based on our calculated direction and speed, ensuring smooth movement. Now that we've written our movement script, let's test it out. First, let's add the character controller to the script. Then I'll hit play and use the arrow keys or WASD keys to move the player around. As you can see, the player moves smoothly in all directions thanks to our script. You'll notice that we haven't added any jumping logic yet. In the next part of this tutorial, we'll extend our script to include jumping functionality. First, let's add some new variables. Public float jump speed equals 10f. Public float gravity equals 10f. And then we have private float upwards velocity, and then we'll have serialized field private transform ground check, and the serialized field private bool is grounded. Next, we'll update the update method to handle jumping and gravity. So we'll add is grounded equals physics dot raycast, and we'll give it the ground check dot position, a vector 3 dot down, and 0.1 f. Then we'll do if is grounded, then if input that get button down jump. So if the player is pressing the jump button, we'll do upwards velocity equals jump speed, else we'll set the upwards velocity to 0. And if the player is not grounded, so we have else, we'll do upwards velocity minus equals the gravity multiplied by time dot delta time. Then we'll set the vectors y-axis to the upwards velocity. So we'll do move direction dot y equals upwards velocity. Now let's go back to our scene and create an empty game object and name it ground check. We'll place this object at the player's feet and then make sure to attach it to the script. Now let's test the script again. I'll hit play and move the player around. Now when I press the jump button, the player should jump, and as you can see, the player moves and jumps correctly. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. We've created a basic movement script that allows our player to move and jump. Remember, this is just a starting point. There are many ways to improve and expand on this script. For example, our camera is currently static, so you'll need to move it manually to change the player's direction. In future videos, we'll look at how to make the camera follow the player and enhance our movement script further. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Unity tutorials. Feel free to leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.